The alarm system screamed through the council station above Velkara Prime. Deho rushed into the command center, his 4 eyes wide with disbelief. The screens showed what should have been impossible. 3 human ships sat calmly in space, just beyond their defensive perimeter. Right where the impenetrable barrier was supposed to stop anything from entering. How did they get through? Deho demanded. His voice carried the authority of someone who had led the Galactic Council for 30 years. The barrier has never failed. Not once in 500 years. Salman, the military commander, studied the readings with growing concern. Her fingers moved across the controls, running scan after scan. High Arbiter, the barrier is still active. Still functioning at full power. They didn't break through it. She looked up at him, fear creeping into her expression. They walked through it like it wasn't even there. The largest human vessel moved forward slowly. It made no aggressive actions. No weapons charged. No shields strengthened. It simply drifted closer to the station with the kind of casual confidence that made Deho's blood run cold. "Open a channel," he ordered. "I want to speak with whoever commands those ships." The main screen flickered. A human woman appeared. She wore a simple gray uniform with minimal decorations. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical style. Her eyes were calm, almost gentle, but there was something underneath that calmness that made Deho uncomfortable. "I am Admiral Giwan of the Terran Defense Fleet," she said. Her voice was steady and professional. "We request a formal meeting with the Galactic Council to discuss matters of mutual concern." "You have violated the quarantine zone," Deho said, forcing strength into his voice. "This is an act of war." Chuan tilted her head slightly. "The quarantine was never meant to protect you from us, High Arbiter. We both know that. It was meant to contain us until you decided it was time to eliminate humanity entirely, just like you did to the others." The command center went silent. Every council member present froze. No one spoke. No one even seemed to breathe. "I don't know what you're talking about," Deho said carefully. "Yes, you do," Juwan replied. "But we can discuss that when we meet. We'll be sending a shuttle with Ambassador Heon in 6 hours. We trust you'll provide appropriate security." "And if we refuse?" Deho asked. "Then we'll wait here until you change your mind. We're very patient." Jiwan smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Though I should mention, every military installation within 50 light years of Council space is currently being observed by our vessels. We've been watching for quite some time. We know about the fleet you're mobilizing at the Kandra Junction. We know about the weapons platforms you've hidden in the Outer Rim. We know about the kill orders you drafted for Earth 3 months ago." Summon's hands trembled as she checked her tactical displays. "She's not bluffing," she whispered to Deho. "I'm detecting passive sensor returns from at least 30 locations. They've been there for weeks. Maybe longer. We never saw them." Deho felt his carefully maintained composure beginning to crack. The humans had been contained in their home system for 150 years. Ever since first contact, when the Council had witnessed their brutal wars, their weapon development, their frightening ability to adapt and overcome, the Council had quarantined them for the safety of the galaxy. Or so they claimed. 6 hours, Guan said. "We look forward to a productive conversation." The screen went dark. Deho immediately turned to his advisors. "Mobilize everything. I want every available warship brought to Council space. Send emergency orders to all member worlds. The humans must be dealt with now, before they can spread." "Hi, Arbiter," Soman said quietly. "I need to show you something." She pulled up a tactical simulation. "I've been running combat scenarios since the humans appeared. Every model. Every possible configuration of forces." She let the simulations play across the screens. Each one ended the same way. "We lose. In every scenario, we lose." "That's impossible," Deho snapped. "We have 10,000 warships. They have barely 300 vessels. Our technology is superior. Our weapons are more advanced." "Our technology was superior," Salman corrected. 15 years ago? But they've been adapting, learning, building, while we kept them locked in their system. They turned it into the most fortified location in the galaxy, and we gave them 150 years to prepare. Another council member, Nari, stepped forward. She was younger than most, with a reputation for asking uncomfortable questions. High Arbiter, perhaps we should consider negotiation. If they truly know about the previous encounters with other species, then refusing to meet might what? Deho interrupted. Make us look guilty? We did what was necessary. The Krell were a threat. The others before them were threats. And humanity is the greatest threat we've ever faced. Were the Krell really a threat? Nari asked softly. Or did they simply refuse to submit to council authority? The silence that followed was dangerous. Deho stared at Nari with barely contained fury. You will not question the decisions made for the safety of all council worlds. 6 hours later, a small human shuttle approached the station. It carried no weapons. Its shields were minimal. Inside was Ambassador Heyoon, a man who looked to be in his 60s, with gray hair and kind eyes that had seen too much. The council chamber was designed to intimidate. It was enormous, with seats rising in tiers around a central platform where visitors were expected to stand and answer questions from above. Hundreds of council representatives filled the seats, members from dozens of species, all looking down at the single human who walked calmly to the center. Hayne looked around at the assembled crowd. He didn't seem nervous. He didn't seem angry. He just seemed tired and sad. Members of the Galactic Council, he began. We come here today not as your enemies, but as the survivors of your intended genocide. Yes, we know. We know what you did to the Krell. We know what you did to the Vareth, to the Sindri, to the Kolmek. 17 species across 1,000 years. All eliminated because they wouldn't bow to your authority, or because you feared what they might become. The chamber erupted in shouts and denials. Hien waited patiently for the noise to die down. You quarantined us 150 years ago after witnessing our wars, he continued. You saw our weapons and our violence and decided we were too dangerous to exist. You planned to let us grow comfortable, let us believe we were safe, and then eliminate us when the time was right, just like you did to the others. Prove it, Deho demanded from his high seat. You make wild accusations. Show us proof. You nodded. That's exactly why we're here. Tomorrow, we will present evidence. Data collected over 5 years by our intelligence officers. Officers who have been living and working within your government, your military, your most secure installations. We know everything. And the galaxy will know it too. He turned slowly, making eye contact with as many council members as possible. We're not here to conquer you. We're not here for revenge. We're here to make sure this never happens again. To anyone, that's all we've ever wanted. To be left alone and to know that we're safe. But you couldn't give us that, could you? The council chamber fell silent once more. Hyen's words hung in the air like a judgment already passed. Outside the station, Admiral Giwan sat in her command chair watching the proceedings through encrypted feeds. Murray, her chief engineer, stood beside her. They're mobilizing their armada, Murray said. Just like we predicted, 10,000 ships heading for Sol System. Guan nodded slowly. Let them come. They'll find out what happens when you give humanity 150 years to prepare for war. She closed her eyes briefly, thinking of her wife, killed by council assassins years ago. It's time they understood what they created when they made us their enemy. 3 days had passed since Ambassador Hyen's arrival. The council chamber was packed even more tightly than before. Representatives from every member world had demanded to attend. Some came out of curiosity. Others came because they needed to know if the human accusations were true. Many came because they already suspected the truth and wanted it finally spoken aloud. Taeyong stood at the central platform where Heian had stood before. He was younger, perhaps in his 30s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He carried a datapad that contained 5 years of careful investigation. 5 years of risk. 5 years of secrets finally ready to be revealed. Before I present our evidence, Taeyang began, I want to tell you about a ship, the Horizon's Dream. It was a colony vessel carrying 3,000 people, families, children, scientists, looking for a new world to study. Artists wanting inspiration from alien skies. It left Earth 40 years ago, heading for an unclaimed system far from Council space. He pressed a control. The screens around the chamber came to life with an image of a beautiful ship, gleaming white and blue, built for long journeys through the stars. The Horizon's dream never reached its destination. 20 years ago, it sent a distress signal. Pirates, they said. Their weapons had damaged the ship beyond repair. Council patrol vessels picked up the signal. 7 ships responded. Taiyang's voice grew harder. Those 7 ships didn't rescue the Horizon's dream. They finished what the pirates started. There were no survivors. Gasps and angry shouts filled the chamber. Taiyang waited for silence. Except there was one survivor. A young man who had been doing repairs in an isolated section when the attack began. His name is Junho. He spent 6 weeks in an emergency pod before being rescued by an independent trader. And he's here today. A young man walked onto the platform. Junho looked smaller than Taiyang, quieter, but there was something in his eyes that made the entire chamber pay attention. He had seen something no one should have to see. I watched through the external cameras, Junho said. His voice was soft but clear. I watched Council warships fire on escape pods, on ships filled with families trying to evacuate. I recorded everything. I saved it all. He looked up at Daeho. I know the commander of that patrol fleet, Admiral Karek. He's in this chamber right now. A disturbance erupted in one section of the seats. An older council officer tried to leave. Guards blocked his path. We have 17 similar incidents, Taiyang continued. 17 times over the past 1,000 years when a species was eliminated by the council. The official records call them accidents. Unfortunate encounters with pirates, internal wars that the council tried to stop, plagues that couldn't be prevented. He looked around the chamber. But we have the real records. The actual orders, the true reasons. The screens changed. Document after document appeared. Orders signed by council leaders. Battle reports from secret missions. Communications between high-ranking officials discussing which species needed to be removed and why. The Krell were first, Taiyang said. 900 years ago. Their crime was developing faster than light travel before the council thought they were ready. The council decided they were too aggressive, too unpredictable. So the council engineered a plague. 70 billion Krell died over 3 years. The council provided medical aid, but the aid included the plague itself. Then the council moved into the empty worlds and claimed them for member species. This is lies. Daeho shouted. Fabricated evidence. The humans want to divide us. DNA records don't lie, Taiyang replied calmly. We have samples from 3 different Krell tomb worlds. We ran the genetic analysis. The plague was artificial. Made in a council laboratory. We can prove it. Nari stood from her seat. Her voice shook, but she forced herself to speak. It's true, all of it. I've seen the classified archives. My predecessor showed them to me before she died. She said someone needed to know. Someone needed to remember what we did. Tears ran down her face. I've kept the secret for 15 years because I was afraid. Afraid of what would happen if anyone knew. The chamber exploded. Council members shouted at each other. Some denied everything. Others demanded explanations. A few sat in stunned silence, their worlds crumbling around them. Taiyang let them argue. He waited. Then he showed the next piece of evidence. This is a recording from 6 months ago, he said. The screen showed Daeho in a private meeting with his inner circle. The quality was perfect. Every word was clear. This is when the council decided it was time to eliminate humanity. The recording played. Daeho's voice filled the chamber. The humans have been quiet for too long. Our intelligence suggests they've been developing new weapons. New ships. If we wait any longer, they'll be too strong to contain. We need to act now. Total elimination. No survivors. We make it look like they destroyed themselves in a civil war. Silence fell over the chamber. Complete and absolute silence. Daeho stood slowly. His face showed no shame, only anger. Yes, I said it, and I meant it. Humanity is a threat to every peaceful species in this galaxy. Look at their history. Constant war, constant violence. They've killed billions of their own kind. What do you think they'll do to us if given the chance? Minho stepped onto the platform next to Taiyang. He was older, with gray hair and cold eyes. A military strategist who had spent decades planning for this moment. You're right, Minho said quietly. We have killed billions of our own. We fought terrible wars, made horrible weapons, done things we're ashamed of. He looked directly at Deho. But we learned, we grew, we changed. And you never gave us a chance to prove it. You saw our worst moments and decided we deserved to die for them. Your worst moments killed more people than the entire population of some council worlds. Deho shot back. And your best moments killed 17 entire species, Minho replied. Species that never attacked you, never threatened you. They just didn't fit into your vision of how the galaxy should be. Hyun walked back onto the platform. He looked tired, so very tired. We came here to show you the truth. To give you a choice, you can acknowledge what you've done. Accept responsibility. Work with us to build something better. Or you can continue down this path. Continue being the monsters you've accused us of being. You broke the quarantine, Deho said. You invaded council space. You threaten us with evidence gathered by spies and infiltrators, and you expect us to negotiate? To submit to your demands? We expect you to face justice, Hyun said simply. The galaxy deserves to know what you've done. Every species, every world, they deserve to decide if the council still speaks for them. Deho straightened his robes. His decision was made. The council will never submit to human authority. You want war? Then you'll have war. I hereby order the immediate mobilization of all council military forces. The human home system will be neutralized. This threat will end today. Salmon stood from her position near the command consoles. High Arbiter, I must advise against this action. The tactical analysis suggests your advice is noted and dismissed, Deho interrupted. Send the order. 10,000 ships. Everything we have. Jump to Sol System and finish what we should have done 150 years ago. Jiwon's face appeared on the communication screens, scattered throughout the chamber. She had been listening to everything. High Arbiter, please reconsider. You're about to make a terrible mistake. The only mistake was letting humanity live this long, Deho replied. We didn't want this, Jiwon said. There was genuine sadness in her voice. We hoped you'd choose differently. That you'd choose peace. She looked at Heian, then back at Deho. But you've made your choice. Now you'll have to live with the consequences. The screen went dark. Aboard the human flagship in orbit, Mireille reviewed the defensive preparations one final time. The trap was set. The pieces were in place. Everything they'd spent 150 years building was about to be tested. They're jumping now, her sensor officer reported. 10,000 ships. Heading directly for Earth, Mireille allowed herself a small smile. Not one of joy. One of grim satisfaction. Good. Let them come. Let them see what happens when you give humans time to prepare. When you give us a reason to fight, she opened a channel to all human forces throughout the Sol System. This is Chief Engineer Mireille. Enemy fleet inbound. Expected arrival in 6 hours. All units to combat readiness. Remember what we're fighting for. Remember the Horizon's dream. Remember the 17 species that couldn't defend themselves. Today, we make sure this never happens again. Throughout the Sol System, billions of automated defense platforms came online. Weapons that had been hidden for decades activated. Ships that had been waiting in the dark spaces between planets lit their engines. And every human, whether in military service or civilian life, was prepared for what was coming. They had known this day would arrive eventually. The Council would never let them live in peace. So they had prepared. They had planned. They had built. And now, finally, the Council was about to learn what humanity truly was. Not victims. Not prey. Not a species to be eliminated when convenient. Hunters, the Council Armada. Dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol System in a display of overwhelming force. 10,000 warships arranged in perfect battle formation. Each vessel bristled with weapons that could destroy a city with a single shot. shields that could withstand nuclear explosions, sensors that could detect a single ship hiding behind a moon. Admiral Juan commanded the fleet from his flagship, the Eternal Vigilance. He studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. 300 human vessels were scattered throughout the system, outnumbered more than 30 to 1. It would be over quickly. All ships advance, Juan ordered. Weapons free. Show no mercy. The armada moved forward like a wall of death. The human ships immediately began retreating toward the inner planets, toward Earth. They're running, Juan's tactical officer reported. Falling back to defensive positions around their homeworld. So ha 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 ha. Ha 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 As expected, they'll try to make us fight through their orbital defenses. It won't matter. We have the numbers. Continue the advance. The Council fleet crossed into the outer system, past the orbit of Neptune, past Uranus. The human ships continued their retreat. They fired a few long-range shots that splashed harmlessly against Council shields. They launched missiles that were intercepted before reaching their targets. They seemed desperate, outmatched. They're sending distress signals, the communications officer reported. Broadcasting on all frequencies. Calling for help. There's no one to help them, Juan said. They're alone, just like the species that came before them. He felt no satisfaction in the coming victory, only grim duty. The humans had to be eliminated. It was necessary. The galaxy would be safer. The armada reached the asteroid belt. Thousands of chunks of rock and ice floating in the dark between Mars and Jupiter. Nothing dangerous, just debris left over from the formation of the solar system. Sir, I'm detecting unusual readings from the asteroids, the sensor officer said. Her voice carried a note of concern. Unusual how? Juan asked. Power signatures, thousands of them. They're activating. The asteroids came alive. What Juan had assumed were simple rocks suddenly lit up with engine flares. Thruster corrections. Weapon locks. Each asteroid was actually a camouflaged weapons platform. Millions of them. Scattered throughout the belt like seeds waiting to grow into death. Evasive action. Juan shouted. All ships, scatter formation. Too late, the asteroids opened fire. Kinetic railguns launched projectiles at incredible speeds. Missiles erupted from concealed tubes. Energy weapons that had been cold and hidden for decades suddenly burned with lethal fury. And something worse, small objects, each no bigger than a fighter craft, swarmed out from between the asteroids. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. They moved with frightening intelligence, coordinating their attacks, targeting shield generators and weapon systems with surgical precision. Autonomous combat drones, Juan's tactical officer said in horror. Each one controlled by human artificial intelligence. They're everywhere. The Council fleet tried to fight back. They fired their weapons at the drones, at the asteroids, at anything that moved. But for every target they destroyed, 10 more appeared. The drones were too fast, too smart, too numerous. They slipped through defensive fire like water through fingers. Ships began dying. First, a destroyer caught in a crossfire from 3 weaponized asteroids. Then a cruiser when drones overwhelmed its point defense systems. Then a capital ship when a kinetic projectile punched straight through its shields and cored it like an apple. We've lost 2,000 ships, the tactical officer reported. His voice shook. In 30 minutes, 2,000 ships. One couldn't believe what he was seeing. The Council's most powerful fleet, assembled from dozens of worlds, built with the finest technology the galaxy had to offer, was being torn apart by rocks and robots. "Push through," he ordered. "We have to reach Earth. That's where their command and control must be." The Armada fought forward. They lost ships with every kilometer. The asteroid belt had become a graveyard. But they pushed through. They reached the inner system. Mars, Earth's moon, Earth itself, hanging in space like a blue jewel. The human fleet waited for them there. Only now, they weren't running anymore. Captain Seogen commanded the human flagship Unity's shield. He watched the Council fleet emerge from the asteroid belt. Their perfect formation broken, their numbers reduced, their confidence shattered. "Shit," Seogen said calmly. "Execute attack pattern Delta. Let's show them what we can really do." The human ships moved, not like a fleet following orders, like a single organism with a unified purpose. They danced through space with inhuman precision, each vessel covering another, creating overlapping fields of fire, moving too fast for the Council's targeting systems to track effectively, and their weapons. By all the stars, their weapons, railguns that fired projectiles at relativistic speeds. The Council's shields, designed to stop energy weapons and conventional missiles, did nothing against solid matter moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The projectiles punched through shields, through armor, through entire ships like they weren't even there. Missiles that couldn't be jammed. They used quantum entanglement for guidance. Every attempt to disrupt their control signals failed. They tracked their targets with absolute certainty and delivered warheads that burned through.
Council holes.
Holes like paper, and then the truly horrible weapon deployed. Yuna had spent 15 years developing it. A quantum entanglement weapon that linked the reactor cores of multiple ships together. When one reactor went critical, entanglement transferred that state to every linked reactor simultaneously. She activated it from her research. Vessel deep in Earth's defensive sphere. Selected 10 Council ships in close formation. Established the quantum link. Then fired a single missile at one of them. The missile struck. The reactor exploded, and 9 other ships exploded with it. "Impossible," Juan whispered. He watched in horror as entire sections of his fleet detonated in chain reactions. How? How are they doing this? Summon's voice came through on a priority channel from the Council station light years away. She had been monitoring the battle through long-range sensors. "I told you, High Arbiter. I told you we would lose. They've been preparing for this fight since the day we quarantined them. While we stayed comfortable and arrogant, they turned their entire system into a weapon. The battle became a slaughter." The Council fleet tried to retreat, but the human ships pursued them back into the asteroid belt. The drones swarmed again. The weaponized rocks fired again. More ships died. Retreat. Juan finally ordered. "All ships jump to hyperspace. Get us out of here." The survivors ran. Of the 10,000 ships that had entered Sol System with such confidence, fewer than 3,000 escaped. 7,000 warships destroyed in less than 6 hours. The greatest military disaster in Council history. G1 watched them flee from her command chair. She felt no joy in the victory, only tired satisfaction that her people had survived, that Earth still stood, that humanity would live. "Let them go," she ordered, "but keep tracking them. I want to know where every surviving ship goes, where they hide, where they think they're safe." "We're tracking all of them," Taiyang reported from the intelligence station. "Our observation posts throughout Council space are monitoring their retreat routes. They can't hide from us." Murray joined Jiwan on the command deck. Together, they looked at Earth through the viewport. Still blue, still beautiful. "Still home? We won," Murray said softly. "We survived," Guan corrected. "The war isn't over. They'll try again. Or they'll try to negotiate. Or they'll try something else. But at least now they know what we can do. They know the cost of attacking us." She turned to her officers. "Send a message to all Council worlds. Tell them Sol System is now a restricted zone. Any military vessel that enters will be destroyed without warning. Any civilian ship that wishes to trade or talk will be welcomed, but they come unarmed and they submit to inspection. Make it very clear that we're not interested in conquest. We just want to be left alone, and if they don't listen, Cyojin asked. Giwan's expression hardened. Then we make sure they learn. We have their fleet signatures. We know their bases. We can reach any council world within a week. They wanted to see if humanity was a threat. She looked at the debris field floating in space, all that remained of 7,000 warships. Now they know. Salman sat alone in the council command center, watching the tactical reports come in. Ship after ship lost. Fleet after fleet reporting catastrophic casualties. She had known this would happen. She had told Daeho. She had warned them all. They hadn't listened. Now they would pay the price. And Salman suspected that the Battle of Seoul was just the beginning. The humans had proven they could defend themselves. The question now was what they would do next. Would they accept peace? Would they seek revenge? Would they do what the council had always done and eliminate those who threatened them? Salman didn't know. But she was certain of one thing. The galaxy had changed forever. The council's age of dominance was over, and humanity's age had just begun. 3 weeks after the Battle of Seoul, the council worlds woke to a nightmare. Human warships appeared in orbit above every major military installation in council space. Not invading, not attacking, just sitting there in silence, watching, waiting, on the industrial world of Trekka 4. Commander Jinho stared at the screen showing 5 human vessels hovering above the planet's primary shipyard. His civilian population of 8 million people were terrified. Emergency channels flooded with panicked calls. People wanted to evacuate. They wanted protection. They wanted someone to tell them they would survive. Ginho had no answers for them. He commanded a defense force of 3 ships and a handful of orbital platforms. Against 5 human warships that had just helped destroy 7,000 council vessels, he had no chance. His communication console blinked. Incoming transmission. He almost didn't accept it. What could he possibly say to the humans? What could he offer? But duty demanded he try. A human woman appeared on his screen. She looked to be in her 40s, with kind eyes and a gentle smile that seemed completely out of place, given the situation. Commander Ginho, she said. My name is Ara. I command the human diplomatic corps for this sector. I'm here to deliver a message and an offer. You're here to destroy us, Jinho said flatly. Just like we tried to destroy you, No Era said. We're here to give you a choice. Surrender your military assets. Your warships, your weapons platforms, your stockpiles. Allow our teams to disable them. In exchange, we guarantee the safety of your civilian population. No one will be harmed. Your people can live their lives in peace. Ginho felt his heart racing. And if we refuse, then we disable your military assets anyway, but with less precision. We'll try to avoid civilian casualties, but we can't guarantee perfect accuracy if you force us to fight. Era's expression remained calm. We don't want to hurt your people, Commander. We want to make sure the Council can never launch another genocide. That's all. You're asking me to surrender my entire world's defenses. We're asking you to choose peace over pride, Ara replied. Your 3 ships can't stop us. Your platforms can't stop us. You know this. So does your population. The question is whether you force us to prove it, or whether you accept reality and save lives. Jinho looked at the tactical displays. The 5 human ships hadn't powered weapons, hadn't raised shields to full strength. They were just there, confident, patient, knowing they had already won. How do I know you'll keep your word? He asked. You don't, Ara admitted. You have to trust that we meant what we said, that we're not like the Council, that we don't eliminate species for convenience. She leaned forward slightly. But I can tell you this. We've already been to 27 worlds. 22 surrendered peacefully. We disabled their military assets and left. No civilian casualties. No occupation. No demands beyond disarmament. 5 worlds refused. Those 5 no longer have military capabilities either, but we had to fight for it. 16,000 combatants died. Not one civilian. We kept that promise even when they fired on us.
How?
Jinho closed his eyes. He thought of his wife, his children, the 8 million souls depending on him to make the right choice.
House.
I surrender, he said quietly. The military assets of Treka 4 are yours. Please keep your word. Araz's smile widened. We will. Expect our teams within the hour. They'll be professional and efficient. This will be over quickly. The transmission ended. Ginho sat alone in his command center, wondering if he had just saved his world or doomed it. Throughout council space, similar conversations happened on world after world. Most commanders chose, as Jinho did. They surrendered. They watched as human special forces teams, led by Commander Sunwoo, infiltrated their bases and disabled everything that could wage war. The humans worked with surgical precision. They knew exactly where everything was, exactly what needed to be destroyed, exactly how to do it without harming anyone nearby, because they had been watching. For years, Taiyang's intelligence network had mapped every council military asset in the galaxy. They knew which worlds would surrender and which would fight. They knew which commanders were reasonable and which were fanatics. They had planned for every contingency. The few worlds that refused to surrender learned quickly that human promises were kept. Human soldiers could have simply bombed military installations from orbit. Instead, they inserted teams on the ground. They cleared civilians from combat zones. They disabled weapons and facilities with precision strikes that destroyed equipment, but spared lives. It was more dangerous for the human soldiers. 17 died in those operations, but they accepted that risk rather than kill innocent people. But while the humans methodically dismantled the Council's military power, Daeho worked on one final desperate plan. Deep beneath the surface of the Council homeworld, in a bunker that supposedly no one knew about, he gathered the last loyal members of his government. We still have one option, Daeho said. His face showed the strain of the past weeks. The battle of soul had broken something in him. Pride, perhaps, or sanity. The Extinction Protocol, built 50 years ago as a final deterrent. If activated, it will destroy Earth and everything in the Sol system. Even if they kill us, we ensure humanity dies with us. The few remaining council leaders looked at each other nervously. The Extinction Protocol was meant to be a last resort if the council itself faced elimination. A weapon so terrible that knowing it existed would prevent anyone from destroying them. Now Daeho wanted to use it for revenge. High Arbiter, Nari said carefully. She had remained loyal despite everything, hoping to find some peaceful resolution. If we activate that weapon, we guarantee our own destruction. The humans will have no reason to show mercy. They already show no mercy. Daeho shouted. They're dismantling everything we built. Everything we are. Better to die knowing we took them with us? Or better to live and rebuild, Nari said softly. There's still time to negotiate. To find peace. Peace. Daeho laughed bitterly. They'll never let us have peace. Not after what we tried to do. Not after what we did to those other species. No, this is the only way. He activated the weapons control system. The Extinction Protocol began its 30-minute arming sequence. In 30 minutes, a missile would launch from a hidden location in deep space. It would jump to hyperspace and emerge in Sol system. And it would detonate a quantum bomb powerful enough to tear apart every planet, every moon, every human station. Earth would cease to exist. Daeho felt grim satisfaction. The humans had won the war, but he would win the final battle. In a small office complex on the Council homeworld, a civilian administrator named Kyung worked late filing reports. He had worked in government logistics for 20 years. A quiet life. An unimportant life. No one paid attention to him, which was exactly what made him perfect for. Taiyang's intelligence network, TON, had been feeding information to human intelligence for 3 years. At first, just minor things. Shipping schedules. Supply routes. Then bigger information. Military movements. Strategic plans. He did it because he believed the council had become corrupt. that someone needed to stop them. Now his security clearance gave him access to something important. Very important. He saw the activation notice for the extinction protocol flash across his terminal. His blood went cold. He knew what that weapon could do. And he knew he had seconds to act. He sent an encrypted message to his human contact. Just 3 words. Protocol activated. 30 minutes. Sun Wu was leading a team through a council military research facility on a minor world when Tai Yang's emergency transmission came through. He read it twice to make sure he understood. Everyone out, he ordered immediately. Now, emergency extraction. His team didn't question. They ran for their transport ship. Within 2 minutes, they were airborne. Within 5 minutes, they were in orbit. Within 10 minutes, they jumped to hyperspace, heading for the council. Homeworld Tai Yang coordinated from his ship in council space. He pulled up every piece of intelligence they had on the extinction. Protocol, location, security defenses. They had known about the weapon for 6 months, but believed it would never be used. Too dangerous. Too insane. They had underestimated Daeho's desperation. Sun Wu's team is 16 minutes out, Tai Yang reported to Jiwan. The weapon launches in 17 minutes. Can they stop it? Jiwan asked. She kept her voice calm, but her knuckles were white, gripping her chair. If they can reach the bunker in time. If they can bypass security. If the weapon hasn't already launched early. Taeyang looked at her. Too many ifs. Giwan made her decision. Alert all forces. Prepare for worst case. If that weapon launches, I want every human ship ready to intercept. We shoot it down in hyperspace if we have to. Sun Wu's ship dropped out of hyperspace above the council homeworld. They had 12 minutes. His team hit the insertion pods, launching toward the surface at maximum burn. The pods screamed through atmosphere, heat shields glowing white-hot. They crashed into the ground 3 kilometers from the bunker entrance. Sun Wu's team emerged running. They had trained for this. They knew the layout. They knew where to go. Council security tried to stop them. Sunwise people went through them like they weren't there. Stun weapons where possible. Lethal force where necessary. This wasn't about being nice anymore. This was about saving humanity. 5 minutes they reached the bunker door. Armored, locked, designed to withstand. Orbital bombardment. Sun Wu placed a shaped charge. Clear. The explosion tore through the door's locking mechanism. They poured inside. Council soldiers waited. A firefight erupted in the narrow corridors. Sun Wu's people were better trained, better equipped, more motivated, but they lost time. 2 minutes, they burst into the control room. Daeho stood at the console, his hand hovering over the final authorization switch. It's over, Sun Wu said, weapon aimed at the High Arbiter. Step away. It's too late, Daeho said. The sequence can't be stopped. In 90 seconds, humanity dies. And you can't do anything about it. Sun Wu shot him. Not to kill. To disable. Daeho collapsed, clutching his wounded shoulder. Minho's voice came through Sun Wu's come. There's an emergency abort. Physical switch. Red panel. Left side of the console. Sun Wu found it. Flipped the switch. Nothing happened. It's locked out, one of his techs reported. Override code required. I'll never give it to you, Daeho. Gasped from the floor. Humanity dies today. Sun Wu looked at his tech. She was already working, fingers flying over the console. Encryption is military grade. I need 30 seconds. The counter showed 25 seconds remaining. The tech worked. Sun Wu watched the counter. 20 seconds. 15. 10. Got it. She entered the abort code. The system paused. Queried. Confirmed. 5 seconds remaining. The weapon sequence terminated. The launch canceled. Earth survived. Sun Wu let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Tai Yang, inform Admiral Guan. Threat neutralized. He looked down at Daeho. The High Arbiter wept on the floor. His last desperate gambit failed. It's over, Sun Wu said quietly. Your war is over. Now comes judgment. 6 weeks after the Battle of Seoul, Representatives from 437 species gathered at a neutral station in deep space. The station had been built hastily, a joint project between humans and several former council worlds who wanted to prove they could be trusted. It wasn't beautiful. It wasn't grand, but it was neutral, and that was all that mattered. The trial of the Galactic Council began on a cold morning by station time. The chamber was simple. Rows of seats for observers, a platform for the accused, a panel for the judges, chosen from species that had never been part of the council and had no interest in revenge or politics. They just wanted truth. Deho sat on the accused platform along with 47 other high-ranking council officials. Some looked defiant. Others looked broken. A few looked like they still couldn't believe this was happening. That they, who had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years, were now on trial. Heian stood to deliver the opening statement. He looked older than he had 6 weeks ago. This whole ordeal had aged him, but his voice remained strong. "We're not here for revenge," he began. "We're here because the galaxy needs to know the truth. For 1,000 years, the Council has presented itself as the guardian of peace, the protector of civilization, the force that kept chaos at bay." He paused. But the reality was very different. The screens around the chamber came alive with images. Species that no longer existed, worlds that had been emptied, records of genocides carried out with bureaucratic efficiency. 17 species, Huhan continued. 17 civilizations that developed space travel and encountered the Council. 17 peoples who were judged and found wanting. Not because they were violent, not because they threatened anyone, but because they didn't fit into the Council's vision of order. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Every day brought new evidence, new testimony, new horrors revealed. Survivors spoke. People from species everyone thought were extinct. They had been hidden by sympathetic council members like Nari, hidden on remote worlds or in secret communities, kept alive while their civilizations were destroyed. An elderly woman named Ketra spoke about the Sindri. Her species had been eliminated 400 years ago because they refused to share their medical technology with the Council. Technology they considered sacred. The Council decided if they wouldn't share, no one should have it. So the Sindri died. All of them. Except for Ketra and a few hundred others hidden away on a forgotten moon. A man named Velk talked about the Kolmek. They had been artists, philosophers, dreamers, not warriors. But they had developed faster than light travel before the Council thought they were ready. They had started exploring, making friends with other species, building trade networks that didn't include the Council. So the Council manufactured a war between the Kolmek and another species, let them destroy each other, then swept in to bring peace to the ashes. Junho testified again about the Horizon's dream, about watching children die, about spending 6 weeks in an emergency pod wondering if anyone would ever know the truth about what happened. Taiyang presented intelligence gathered over 5 years, communications between council leaders discussing which species to eliminate next, cost-benefit analyses of genocide, plans for humanity's destruction outlined in clinical detail. Minho showed military records, deployment orders for fleets sent to destroy civilians, after-action reports that describe successful exterminations with the same language used for completed logistics operations. The judges listened to everything, asked questions, took notes. Their faces showed no emotion, but sometimes, when particularly horrible evidence was presented, they had to pause the proceedings, had to step away, had to remember why they were doing this. Deho was given a chance to defend himself, to explain, to justify. He stood on the platform and looked out at the assembled representatives, at species from across the galaxy who had come to witness this moment. "I did what was necessary," he said. His voice carried no apology, no remorse. The galaxy is dangerous, full of species that could threaten peace. Someone has to make the hard decisions. Someone has to ensure stability. He looked directly at Heian. "Yes, we eliminated species. But we saved countless more by preventing wars, stopping dangerous technologies from spreading, keeping order. You judge us now, but without the Council, the galaxy would have torn itself apart centuries ago. The Sindri weren't dangerous, Hayan replied quietly. They were healers. The Kolmek were artists. The Krell were explorers. None of them threatened anyone. They just didn't obey you. They didn't obey order, Deho corrected. And order is what keeps civilization alive. Order built on graves, Hyun said. Order maintained through fear. That's not civilization. That's tyranny, the trial continued. More evidence, more testimony. More truth revealed, Nari testified for the prosecution. She provided documents from classified archives, communications she had hidden for 15 years, proof that the genocides were planned, deliberate, and approved at the highest levels. I kept these secrets because I was afraid, she said. Afraid of what would happen if anyone knew. Afraid of being complicit, but silence is complicity. I see that now. I should have spoken years ago. Maybe I could have prevented some of this. I'll have to live with that failure for the rest of my life. Ara took the stand to describe the disarmament operations. How most worlds had surrendered peacefully. How human forces had kept their promises not to harm civilians. How even when forced to fight, they had prioritized minimizing casualties. We didn't want to be conquerors, she said. We wanted to stop the Council from ever doing this again. That was all. We dismantled their military because that military had been used to commit genocides. But we left their people in peace. We left their governments functioning. We didn't colonize. We didn't occupy. We just removed the weapons that had been pointed at the innocent for too long. The judges deliberated for 2 days. When they returned, the chamber fell silent. We have reviewed all evidence, the lead judge said. She was a member of a species that had remained neutral for centuries. Her word carried weight. We have heard testimony from hundreds of witnesses. We have examined documents, recordings, and physical evidence. Our conclusion is unanimous. She looked at Deho and the other accused council members. The Galactic Council leadership is guilty of genocide, guilty of crimes against sapient life, guilty of conspiracy to commit further genocides, guilty of attempting to destroy humanity. These crimes are proven beyond any doubt. The chamber erupted. Some species cheered. Others wept. A few sat in stunned silence. The sentence is as follows, the judge continued. All convicted individuals will be imprisoned for life. No parole, no amnesty. They will be held in a secure facility monitored by an international coalition, including human observers. The Galactic Council as a governing body is hereby dissolved. Its authority is revoked. Its laws are nullified. She paused. We recommend the formation of a new governing body. One based on equality. One where every species, regardless of size or power, has an equal voice. One where decisions are made through consensus, not decree. And one where humanity serves not as rulers, but as guarantors. To ensure this never happens again, Guan stood from her observation seat. Humanity accepts this responsibility, but we will not accept leadership of this new body. We've seen what happens when one species has too much power. We'll provide security. We'll share our technology. We'll help build a better galaxy, but we won't rule it. The applause was thunderous. The new Galactic Assembly was formed over the following months. Every species sent representatives, even the small ones, even the weak ones, even the ones the Council had barely acknowledged. They all had a voice now. They all had a vote. The first order of business was the establishment of a memorial, a physical place to remember the 17 extinct species. To honor those who had been silenced, they built it on the neutral station where the trial had occurred. A large open space with 17 sections, one for each lost civilization. In each section, survivors and descendants placed artifacts. Records, art, anything that represented who those people had been. The Sindri section held medical texts and healing crystals. The Kolmek section displayed beautiful sculptures and philosophical writings. Each section told a story. Each section said we existed. We mattered. We are remembered. At the center of the memorial stood a simple monument, a tall pillar with names. Not the names of the civilizations, the names of individual people who had died. As many as could be recovered from records, millions of names, billions more lost forever. The inscription at the base read, "They were silenced. We remember. We prevent." 10 years after the trial, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The new assembly functioned, though not perfectly. Species argued, disagreed. Sometimes trading disputes or territorial claims threatened to escalate. But they didn't go to war. Because human ships patrolled the trade routes. Because human diplomats helped mediate disputes. Because everyone knew that humanity would not allow another genocide. Juan had retired from military service. She lived quietly on Earth with her children and grandchildren. Sometimes she visited the memorial they had built in Sol System, a twin to the one on the neutral station. She would stand before the name of her wife, killed so many years ago by council assassins. And remember, Hoon continued working as a diplomat, though he spent more time teaching now. Training young humans and aliens in negotiation, ethics, and the responsibility of power. His students came from dozens of species. They would be the ones to build the future.